Hello everybody, it is me, Alita, here at Alita Art Studio and Gallery, and we are talking on our Technique Tuesday about how to mix the color coral. Now normally you would think coral is just going to be with red and yellow and some white, but I want to show you the variations that you can get with that by mixing your other colors. Showing this to another student today, and she had a variety of different coral colors that we came up with, and that's why every time when I say you guys are gonna get ready to paint, always load your palette with every color, like the Fab 5 colors, so that you can go through and be able to pull from those colors even if you're just going to tint it just a little bit. So first of all, it's kind of messy because I'm using the leftover palettes after class, but I have my cadmium red, my ultramarine blue, and my yellow, and that's how we load up on the left side with white here at the top. Now we've got all these other colors mixed, and that's fine. On the right side, I have my alizarin crimson, my phthalo blue, and my cadmium yellow medium hue. We have our white at the top. So I'm gonna just go ahead and show you the color. If we took our red and we just took the yellow and we mix those colors together, we get this nice orange. And I can just keep grabbing a little bit of my white to get these different variations here. So you can see that even just adding a little bit of my yellow, you're gonna start to get this kind of variety of color just from yellow, white, and my cadmium red. But let's take it a little bit further. Let's go ahead and mix our brown. So we walk it on down to make brown. So I'm using my cadmium red, I'm using my ultramarine blue, and I'm gonna use some yellow, right? We're gonna mix, 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 usually about equal parts to make a darker brown. Sometimes if it's pulling a little bit too blue or a little bit too chocolate, I'm gonna warm it up with some red. So I'm gonna add more of my cadmium red, and I'm gonna add more yellow. So I wanna make kind of a warm brown here. So I added a lot more yellow, and we're gonna add a lot more of my red. I'm already out of red, so I'm gonna give myself another little squirt. Just FYI, if you're using Utrecht colors, they are always going to say for the cadmium is medium. It's the same. So medium and cadmium red, medium hue are the same if you're using the Utrecht colors. So I'm gonna add a little bit more red here to make more of this sienna brown. And I'm gonna just use a little bit of this. So look at what happens when I come back over here and I put a little bit of the sienna brown. And then I'm gonna add again more of this coral color to that. So I'll add a little bit of that sienna brown, adding more yellow, adding more red, and you're gonna start to get a variation. You might have a little bit more of a salmon. So like we've got coral that we're moving into salmon. If you also wanted to grab a little bit of this brown here, and we added a little bit of my alizarin crimson, I want you to see too that even changing that with adding a little bit of my alizarin crimson can just change the color, and could keep adding white to that. But that's gonna turn it to more of like a rose color. So it's gonna be a little bit more or a little bit more mauve if you wanted to stay. So remember that your alizarin crimson is a cooler, it's a little bit of a cooler red than your cadmium red is. So we've got this variation of just our yellow, cadmium red, white, coral. And then if I added a little bit of my brown, I can still make a little bit of my brown over here. You can just kind of play around. I mean, you could make so many variations on this color. I think the main thing that you have to remember, a little bit more of my yellow there, is that when you're making coral or salmon, any of this, you want to be able to not just put on your palette white, red, and yellow, because that is going to limit. It's going to limit how much you can do. You want to be able to say, okay, I can pull from my brown, I can pull from my alizarin crimson, and even to some extent, if you wanted to, let's take that, so like more of that salmon-y color. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we also have a lot of variations of different salmon colors, so it's kind of salmon season. But even if I'm taking this alizarin crimson and then adding some more yellow to that, I mean, you're getting such a nice combination and variation of the different colors, and you wouldn't have the option. You would get a little bit stagnant by just having the three. So even when you think you're just going to be mixing, I'm just mixing coral, or I'm just mixing salmon, or I'm just mixing this, I only need these three colors. Oh, I just need for purple, I'm just going to put my ultramarine blue, my alizarin crimson, because it's just purple. Well, no, I always load my palette with all Fab 5 colors and the white, because I know that I might need to pull a little bit of the brown into it, or a tiny bit of the black, or maybe just be able, a little tiny bit of your alizarin crimson can change the whole dynamic of the color. Okay, so I wanted to have a little bit of time to talk to you guys about our Technique Tuesday and how that also relates to life. So as you know, that I believe that most things that I learn in art are relatable to life. And I'm always thinking about, as I'm painting, or as I'm preparing for painting, how does this, what's going on in my life, and maybe how that's coming out as I'm painting. And you know, it's funny because today our lesson was on mixing these salmon colors and or this coral, and how we had all this variation. I don't know if you guys can see that from what we were mixing today with our Fab 5 colors. And I was really adamant that you know, when you start and you're going to mix any of your colors, to always start by putting your Fab 5, Elita's Fab 5 colors, which is your alizarin crimson, your phthalo blue, your cadmium red medium hue, your cadmium yellow, your ultramarine blue, and then white, I say, is like a bonus color, but it's not really a color, white is just white. So what I wanted to talk about was the fact that I layer my palette like this every day. It's like the foundation of how I start doing any of my paintings. And a lot of my students, and it's happened twice today in class, where they just put on their palette the things that they thought they needed. So they were like, oh, I'm gonna mix coral, I'm just gonna put red and yellow and white, because that's probably all I'm gonna need. I'm just gonna need those to make coral. That's just it. They don't see the complexity of what else might be needed. The other person today, another student who just wanted to mix the specific colors that they thought they needed. So they were only putting on here a combination of the colors that they thought that they needed. But again, you don't know when you're gonna need to pull from these other colors, or you're not sure as you get mixing that you might actually need to be able to have these other colors that you didn't think that you needed. And so when I was thinking about these colors, and I was thinking about life, I was thinking about foundational core habits. My son is just going off to college, and we were talking about how he struggled last year just being able to manage like his classes and getting his workload done. And he really struggled not being able to keep up in terms of like, there's so many distractions and there's so many other things happening. And so I was thinking about this and talking about that. One of the things that we do is we set the palette up the same each time. So I said that again. I was like, guys, even if you think you're only gonna need these things, I wanna see all 5 colors on your palette. I want them in the same spots. I want them on each time before you start painting. Because what that does is that sets up this habit of you being able to get more and more used to always having those colors in the same place. You're gonna be able to move quicker through the painting process. You're gonna be able to not have to stop and go find that color at a certain time to be able to put that in later. And it really allows for you to be able to move faster and more efficiently as you begin to paint more and more and more. And so thinking about that is also like core things in your life. What do you need to do to just set up little habits, but doing it the same every day, over and over and over again, helps you to be more efficient. It helps you to create more of a schedule. It helps you to stay on task. It helps you to be able to, maybe you don't think, oh, I don't really think I'm going to need that today, but you do it anyway, because in building those healthy habits, it's going to make your life more efficient. It's going to run better. It's going to allow you to be able to mix more and create more complexities and more beautiful things in a variation, because you have these foundational things on your palette. And so it's just something to think about, like, what are maybe some healthy habits that you can do that you implement into your life every day? So for me, I am trying to, and then you can do these little things called habit stacking, which is something that I heard from, I think it's Atomic Habits is the book that I was reading. And it was talking about, you start with one habit and then you can build on those over and over and over again. So I am trying to do every morning when I first get up, the first thing I do is make my bed. And then so every day, again, that's my cadmium yellow on my palette. I make my bed every day when I first get up. The next thing I do is I try to get my coffee started so that I can just, like, immediately in the kitchen start with that. So it's the next thing I'm having for my habit. Then I would do, so maybe there's my cadmium red. Then I do a 5-minute meditation. And so I've really been slacking on that, but it's probably my ultramarine blue. And then after I meditate, I like to do my Duolingo because I'm learning Italian. So that's my next healthy habit. Maybe there's my phthalo blue. And then almost daily, I try, maybe 5 days a week, I try to go do my Barre 3 class, which is getting my exercise done in the morning, kind of sets up the rest of my day for success. And so there's another healthy habit that I've added. The foundation for the rest of my day is good because I've started it with the right things in place. So just being able to pick out some few things in the morning to start your day, and do that every day, just like you would get in the habit of loading your palette, and see what kind of beautiful colors you can come up with. All right, and that is my Technique Tuesday tip for the day.